Kiki Palmer was recently doing her thing on her podcast, and Kiki recently shared that she felt like high-earning women like her often feel boxed in.
Yes, there are some women that say, oh no, I need a man to make more than me. But there's a lot more women who are actually willing to compromise.
I think women who are in a financially advantageous position may have to broaden their perspective.
Are men really out here trapping women with babies?
First of all, that also insinuates that the woman does not have agency over her own body.
Men have been arguing forever that once conception happens, we really don't have a lot of say-so if there's a baby or not.
If we're going to say equality, it means that men are out here trapping too.
What are y'all thoughts about where we are in the case?
Because the headlines keep saying sex parties, like it's a crime. But what's really on trial here is like unchecked power.
I'm disappointed in the trial itself because I thought it was going to be more.
It's like you watch a trailer, you're like, oh shit, this will be a good movie. And then you finally see the movie, like, oh damn, they put the best parts in the trailer. Welcome to yet another episode of the BLC Pod. And I got most, or some, of my people with me.
You.
I feel like I feel offended. So really it's most, because there's three of us, there's five of us, so it's still most. But it feels like some. You know what I'm saying? You're emotionally.
We can be some.
Some, right?
You?
But anyways, before we get into the shenanigans, because y'all ready to go. Right? Not only ready to go to start the show, but probably even ready to go. Right? Before we start the show, don't forget to like, subscribe, follow, and all that good stuff. And of course, we got that merch, y'all.
We got the merch you can merch.
That's right. Yeah. That's right. Yo, we got some emotional ears merch. It's about to drop soon. O-M to the G, because a lot of y'all out there got some. You guessed it, emotional ears, right? Before we continue, you know what I mean? We're going to give another little quick shout out to Tia and Delvin. Couldn't be with us for this particular episode, but I know that they're watching, so we're going to make sure we turn up for them. You dig what I'm saying? So with that being said, I got my girl SNM in the building.
All right. Thank you so much. So just super quick, I'm down for the clown tonight, so I'm going to do my best. I'm maybe a little shady, maybe not so much. I'm not quite sure yet where I'm going to land, but I can tell you this. I already miss Tia B and Devin right now, and I cannot wait to get into the topics tonight. And last but not least, not only the emotional ears that somebody seemed to love, but womanese is dropping too, correct?
Because a lot of y'all be talking that womanese. That's a fact.
So, you know, a lot of times, apparently, I tend to speak in womanese. So I'm looking forward because I'm going to rock that shirt because sometimes womanese means I speak and you listen. At least that's the way I'm interpreting it.
Or you speak incoherently and we listen and pretend that we're listening. But Jay.
What up, though? It's your boy, Just Jay. Mr. Goodwoods is my name. My vibe tonight is going to be a little bit shady. It might feel like that for some of y'all. So I got the shades on just so nobody gets it twisted. Because I feel like y'all moving messy out here in these streets, man. And I got to call foul on some people. Like my homegirl back in Texas, you know what I'm saying, who I don't know her personally, but I heard that she married her ex-boyfriend behind his back. Like literally, not figuratively, like legally. She like went back there, forged his signature, submitted some documents, walked down the aisle, solo dolo, like it was clearance sale at City Hall. And she was just like, I think I like a husband today. I don't think that's love. I think y'all need to slow down out here. So I'm going to call it like it is for the whole episode because whether it's delusion or masterclass and feeling DIY, we're going to call it whatever y'all doing out here in the streets, the BLC Pod. We're going to keep it real, man, raw and unfiltered. So I got the people, the core, Clubhouse crew. Let's get into it. Do what we do.
Yeah, man. You know, I don't know if I should be mad at her or applaud her though, Jay. That's pretty industrious, right? She went and got married to the nigga behind his back.
I mean,
was there like some insurance going on? Like, was there an end game?
Honeymoon was
kind of diabolical, though. You know,
are you right? I mean, if she was doing for, I just wonder if it was a scam. I ain't even mad. But listen, man, I'm about to do something that I feel like a lot of people don't think that I can do, and I don't even know why they would think this, but and it's not because I'm having a hard time doing it, right? I just, first of all, I don't know why y'all think I could never be wrong, right? Let me start there. But I want to take this time to look my girl SNM in the face and say, you know what? I was wrong, you know? In pre-pro, we had a bet, and, you know, it was a little trivial bet, but I stood, you know what I'm saying, on my 10, chest fully poked out, and we bet. You know what I'm saying? I'm like, nah. So I went back, listened to the transcripts, and even though they weren't quite as conclusive as I would have liked, but the man that I am says, Nick, no, we're not doing that, right? And I just want to say, I was wrong. You know what I'm saying? And it's funny because I read some of the comments, and I feel like even with y'all, some of y'all might not think that I could admit when I'm wrong. You know what I'm saying? And I see why. Because I'm not wrong very often. You know what I'm saying?
You do
Like,
good.
if I had to put percentages on it, I'd say I'm probably like 98%, you know what I'm saying? 95, maybe the lowest on a bad day. But like in terms of me being right a lot. And I realize that people hate the fact that I'm right a lot, right? Or that I enjoy being right, or that I come across a certain type of way. So they think that I never think that I'm wrong. And that's not true. That could be farthest from the truth. You know what I'm saying? It's just that I'm not wrong very often. So I just want everybody to see right here, right now, that I was wrong and I can admit it, right?
Is it still an apology?
Uh-huh.
I know.
Is this still an apology?
Yeah, I was like, what is this? I don't know where it started off good, and then all of a sudden it went, I don't know if it went left or right.
Follow. You
No.
felt like you was
What?
and I wasn't sure yet.
I would have been I would have been happy with I lost the bet, and that would have
That's
been
what
good
I'm
enough for
saying.
me.
I was wrong.
He didn't say that.
I did. I'm
Yeah.
saying I lost the bet, and I
Yes.
was wrong about the position that I took that led to the bet.
Yeah.
It's not an apology because there's nothing to be sorry about necessarily, right? I just, misremembered. I went back and I looked.
Fair enough. All right.
And then on top of that, I'm coming back and admitting it in front of the world. And
Which I
somehow
appreciate.
that's a bad thing, right? So that's number one, right? But number two is doesn't happen very often. Y'all missed that part. Y'all want to skip over the fact that I'm not wrong very often. And I'm going to land with this because I think it's important. I feel like a lot of people don't pay attention to conversations, right? You can have a conversation. It can be about a myriad of things. I choose to speak passionately about the things that I feel very strongly about. And I usually feel very strongly about things that I'm pretty sure of. You know what I'm saying? It's not my fault that some of y'all out here just be running y'all fucking mouths and they be wrong as fuck, get called the fuck out and don't know how to react. You know what I'm saying? I get that you don't understand how it feels to come across right a lot. So you can't relate to me, okay? But watch yourself in those comment sections because there's a couple of people on the YouTube comments who got the work today. And when I got time, woo, I got time. I told this one lady, girl, stay out your lane. Look like you ain't dated since the second Obama administration. You know what I'm saying? She lucky I didn't go all the way back to the Bush administration. But with that being said, let's start the show, man.
Okay.
Hopefully we got the energy turned up. Just be careful in the comment section.
Lord.
But speaking of since the Bush administration, I feel like that's how long Diddy's been popping, right? And up to this point, everybody been waiting for the downfall. But I don't know about y'all, the end of this case just kind of feels a little weird because they initially said, 8 weeks or something like that, right? We were expecting a little bit more of a robust defense from the defense, right? Or maybe a little bit more sizzle for the steak that the prosecution was serving up. But when it's all said and done, by the time the show airs, they would have just maybe completed. The defense would have, rested, right? The prosecution gave their summation or whatever. The case, for all intents and purposes, is over. All the witnesses have been called. I think the defense had maybe one witness, right? And then lo and behold, little trick. When there was time to deliver like the jury instructions, the prosecution decides, you know what? To streamline things, we're gonna drop a couple of these charges. You know what I'm saying? Like the arson one, for example, about the whole blowing up the car thing that nobody had any evidence for. That was nothing more than hearsay. But anyways, before we go into all that, what are y'all thoughts about where we are in the case? The case that started, Jesus, it feels like forever ago. We're coming towards the end of it. Can we just talk about what did you think about the prosecution, the case they laid out, the charges, how it kind of all ended, and with the defense giving their closing statements? What are your thoughts about this Diddy case? Any prognostications? What are your thoughts?
Okay, so I'm going to get out of the whether or not Catch is a victim thing. Everybody wants to stay there. I want to focus on the unspoken person, people, community that's catching the stray from the Diddy trial. First, as far as the trial goes, I'm glad they're wrapping it up. I'm glad the defense didn't call any witnesses. I think it was smart. You can't call somebody to prove that something didn't happen. It's just, it's between two people. And if you weren't one of those people that was there. So I think they were smart to do that. Let it rest. I think the trial's done what it was supposed to do, and that was humiliate Diddy. And well, that's really unfortunate. And can he bounce back from this? Maybe. And I'm gonna tell you why I think maybe he can bounce back. Because the group that caught the stray right now are the lifestyle people, right? Lines keep saying sex parties like it's a crime. But what's really on trial here is like unchecked power, maybe, maybe a little consent manipulation, possibly a confusion in a subculture or confusion with the subculture. I'd agree with that. But that's not the lifestyle, right? Because what they were doing out there, it wasn't centered on non-monogamy and freedom. There was some other stuff going on. That was rich men using access and aura as a cover for whatever abuse they might have had in their own personal life. That has nothing to do with all the people who are living free and loving however they want to love and having whatever expressions they want to have. So trying to throw the LS under the bus, like I feel like it's happening right now with this whole Diddy trial, it's the kink community's fault because we let Diddy lead for us. We let him speak for us. We let him try to represent us. Now, his bounce back, maybe Diddy can come back. He can clear it up. Because over here in the LS, we got rules, and he would know that. We got red lights, green lights, safe words, aftercare. What he's accused of is like having a cocktail, having a cult full of cocktails. No pun intended. So, long story short, I feel like people need, hopefully this will spread some light on what it really is like to have consensual, absolute fun with adults who are not being bounded by other people's constraints, and realize that there's nothing creepy, right, or cruel or coercive about that, right? That's why I see with the Diddy trial. I'm glad we can get out the way. We can stop besmirching these other people who have nothing to do with that foolishness and get back to hearing good music, having great conversation.
So I am not going to go a certain way. I'm probably going to say that I'm kind of disappointed. I think, and I'm not disappointed in the fact that I'm disappointed in the trial itself, because I thought it was going to be more. Like when they first started talking about this, they're like, they had 100 witnesses. I ain't see 100 witnesses. They talked about they had this, they had that, they had transcript, they had tapes, they had this. And while I understand that as the public, we're not exactly privy to all of that because it's in the behind scenes, it's the trial and whatnot, and we won't be privy to it's all over with and done with. Based on what we saw in the public, though, I don't think they actually got a case, because then they dropped, first of all, the kidnapping charge was BS on multiple cases, because they was trying to tie the kidnapping to the folks who was coming, and I guess maybe it's the folks who stayed for 3-4 days because they was too dehydrated, and he provided hydration and medical care. I don't know exactly why they put the kidnapping charge on there. The arson charge, since Kid Cudi never acknowledged, well, he acknowledged, but it was like rumor and so forth. I understood why they dropped that. So basically, I felt like they threw everything under at him that they could possibly throw, hoping that something to stick. It was like the spaghetti on the wall, like, oh yeah, it's going to stick. And what ended up happening was that there's a good chance he might walk. And so as far as I'm concerned, I guess they made a case for domestic violence and state charges perhaps, but I don't think they made a case for RICO. And to be honest, I thought it was going to be more like evidence that was coming out that was like this. And when the defense rested, and so originally the defense wasn't planning on calling any witnesses. So the fact that they may have called one, I'm actually pretty surprised, because at first they weren't planning on calling any, because they were resting on the fact that, hey, this is just about sex and power, and you try and bring this man down because of his sexual, proclivities. And so it was like almost like the defense took it as a joke. Even when they asked Diddy how he was doing or how he was feeling, the judge was laughing at Diddy's response, like, oh, ha, 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 ha. And I don't know what to take of this case. I can just say I'm disappointed, though, because if you're going to go for RICO, and I assume that it was going to be like clear cut, Al Capone type clear cut, every RICO case in the book type clear cut. And at the minimum, maybe financial, I don't even know. Let me stop. The point is, it was lackluster. I thought it was going to last longer. I think 50 Cent made this even more exciting than what it actually was, just because 50 hated him. That beef was like, oh, 50 got beef. 50 dropped a Netflix before he even got, and I'm now expecting like Surviving Diddy after this. And so I think there's going to be a lot of people who make money off of this, to include those people who came and spoke or testified. But I don't think that it's going to be as clear cut as folks assume it's going to be at this point, because I don't think they proved RICO.
Listen, man, it's funny because I was sitting here as I was talking, thinking about the position I took very early on. I think it was, or at least in the trial, right? I said that I think the prosecution has a case for the things they will try him for. The challenge is going to be whether or not the average juror can get past all of the salaciousness for the most part. That was like by and large, because I still feel like if you look at technically the charges, right? Racketeering, I believe, was one. There were 2 charges of traveling across state lines for prostitution. And I think it was 2 counts of sex trafficking or something like that, which are not very hard charges to necessarily prove, right? If you're talking about, was this person a prostitute? Did they travel for the purpose of this? Check, right? Was he using his business to necessarily facilitate these events and freak-offs? Check, right? So honestly, I kind of still feel the same, right? That I think is going to ultimately still end up with him being found guilty. Or at least it rests on whether or not the prosecution did a good enough job on just making the case about the case. And if the jurors feel the same way that S&M does, and also the same way that I do, I think you're likely to maybe even get a conviction in that way, right? Because if it just boils down to sex, that was the challenge I thought from the very beginning. Because if the persons or the people can see this as being something that was consensual, right? Just by and large, right? You know, women nowadays have kind of muddied the waters in terms of what's professional prostitution anyway, right? So my body, my choice. And we become more liberal in that way. So I think that part's going to be hard to stick. But if people believe that some of the people who testified were willing participants or driving some of these events, then I can see them saying, well, what's the criminality here? Right? To a certain extent, right? So I think that's what it rests on, the sex, which is what they wanted in the first place. The question becomes, how does the average person go through all that sex to kind of find the truth? And the truth, I believe, is the prosecution did prove their case. But at the same time, it doesn't mean that Diddy's going away forever, right? Because yes, I think these charges are serious, but even the underlying charges, it's not like there's murder on there or some of the more capital offenses. And I think because when we hear RICO, they're typically used in cases where those things exist. We think that the punishment is going to rise to the level of that, even if they're using the language to kind of prove the point. But I don't think that's going to be the case here, right? I do think it might be a situation where he gets a little bit of time and then eventually is able to come back out. But honestly, to your point, S&M, I agree wholeheartedly. For a lot of the viewing public who came into this case wondering if this was nothing more than some trumped up shit, no pun intended specifically, in terms of the whole Cassie situation, they're kind of left saying, it still feels that way. And I can't be mad if they feel that way about it. You know what I'm saying? I just feel like the taxpayers' dollars were maybe ill spent. I heard the prosecutor wanted to kind of get ahead of the fact that the defense attorney might have mentioned something about that, which would have been prudent to me to do so, because it's like at the end of the day, not saying they weren't victims. I just think this was one of the most flimsiest cases that we'll see from the feds. And maybe somebody just seemed a little over anxious to push this case. And so almost all the conspiracy theorists, all the people who believe that Diddy was being done wrong a certain type of way, can probably look at this case and still feel that way. Because it wasn't like the prosecution really proved the monster that even some of us thought he might have been. And that's the funny part, right? Because in our language, there's this one thing that one person said on a podcast, right? They were like, for all the shit that you heard about Diddy being funny or, you know, part of the community or, you know, homosexual or whatever, you didn't hear any of that here. Like, even though some of the things he did, people kind of question whether or not, but you didn't hear about him actually engaging with. So it's kind of like, you know, y'all did all this, and what dirt or what tea did y'all spill for real, for real? We were hearing about the baby oil and all that, you know, long ago. Like, if that was it, it's like you watch a trailer, you're like, oh shit, this will be a good movie. And then you finally see the movie, like, oh, damn, they put the best parts in the trailer. So, I mean, listen, thoughts and prayers to everybody, because we don't want to necessarily make light for those people who might feel victimized. I also do want to mention, though, recently, the Puff and his son, there's a lawsuit that just came out where they're being accused of a group essay, which is, you know, and a lawsuit just was filed. So I don't think it's going to be the last that we hear of these types of things. And so even if he does, you know, kind of somehow move past this criminal case, I'm sure there's going to be still people lining up to find a way to seek justice in their own way.
I don't doubt it at all. Not at all. As a matter of fact, one of the things that we talked about previously was the whole conspiracy theories behind the power. And I think, Jay, you touched on it briefly as well in regards to, you know, basically try to trap him, you know, under this whole guise of RICO and so forth, because he was a powerful Black man in a certain position. And so I find that ironic, because the next one is talking about men who are trying to trap women into having babies. And so there was a viral clip that went out where this guy was pretty much discussing how men are trapping women with babies because they may be insecure, or they're trying to trap them for their own, promotional purposes and whatnot. And the example that was given was DDG and, of course, Halle Bailey, which was the most recent example. But we also have Naomi Osaka and being trapped with a baby very early in her career, in her rising career. And so it started to raise questions about the man's intentions. And so basically my question is this a concern? are men really out here trapping women with babies?
Listen, man. I think when we talk about equality, people don't understand what that means, right? Like, it's like you want things to be equitable, balanced, right? We've, of course, heard of the keep a nigga baby or the trap a nigga baby from the women's side. And so what? Men aren't allowed to deploy certain strategies or stratagem in terms of an end for them, right? Because that's not manly. I mean, I don't know. We're in a new age where everything is open, right? Like literally, right? And you can be anything that you want to be. So if that man, right, wants to be a stay-at-home dad, right, maybe he wants to live the soft life, right? I mean, here's the thing, in all seriousness, right? These gender roles, we got to re-examine them to a certain extent, right? Because let's say if my wife is Serena Williams, whoever, right? Famous person, she got to work a lot, right? She may not be the best mom, right? So, but she wants to be a mother, right? And listen, she makes more money than me. So I'm willing to stay home and hold it down while I do my rap thing on the side. Like, you can characterize it as trapping. Maybe some people would characterize it as family building, right? The audacity of people to look into other people's situations to make judgments. We don't know if Corday or these other people, like first of all, that also insinuates that the woman does not have agency over her own body. If it's her body, her choice, she would have, he slid it in, he just, right? So that assumes that she's some weak vessel that was not allowed. So I think there's so much wrong with the assumption in the first place, right? That the man, he tricked her out of her pregnancy? I just don't get it. I think the likelihood is that these young men were saying, you know what? Gender roles be damned. You know what I'm saying? I'm going to show that I could be a strong man while holding my wife down and maybe leading the home, right? Because she makes more money than me. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. And I hate the fact that we paint these pictures because in some situations, and this might relate to a story we're about to talk about, but I don't think there's anything wrong if the woman is making, great money and having her career and all that, right? And maybe I'm not, right? But I can still bring value to the relationship because she wants to be a mom and I'm willing to stay at home and take care of the kids. You know what I'm saying? And so it's a win-win. So how is that trapping anyone? You know what I'm saying? Now she got the baby out the way. You feel me? Like, so now we can go on and live our good life. You know what I mean? So I don't really buy into it. I don't think it's a real problem. I think what's happening is there are some bitter women who are mad that some men have maybe benefited from the patriarchal thing that we've set up that benefits y'all more often than not, like the whole alimony thing. And so y'all get mad because it sometimes benefits us, but yet y'all want the benefits that we get too. So it's like, which one is it? You know what I'm saying? Like, you want equality or not? So I think anybody who's fixing their mouths to say these things and they claim they want equality, it's cap. You know what I'm saying? I'm here for the people. You know what I mean? Fuck we talk about. And lastly, if it was me, hell yeah, Trapper. Get the fuck out of here. You know what I'm saying? Like, imagine if the black celebrity here, and I got a chance to kick it with her on a one-night stand.
I should have gone first. I really should have. Because I was rocking with him. I was like, yeah. Yeah. And I was like, yeah, dudes can't even trap women. And he's like, I trap them. And so now I don't even know what I'm saying. But I'll try anyway. So Nic being the outlier here, okay, I reject the notion that barring these new draconian abortion laws that the Trump and the 2025 plan put in place, I reject the notion that a man can trap a woman with a baby. Okay? And here's why. Because men have been arguing forever that once conception happens, we really don't have a lot of say-so if there's a baby or not. So how can we trap you when you have the ultimate veto power? So if the woman...
Manipulation?
It's manipulation. You know what I'm saying?
No, I'm asking you a question. That's how.
Huh?
That's how I would do it.
Yeah, he was answering
emotional
manipulation.
Listen,
yeah.
Emotional manipulation is not a trick that is only akin or attributed to men or women. People manipulate emotions, and they manipulate other people, and they get what they want all the time. They're not the greatest people, but they're highly effective. They can even be president, right? So, but my point here is
you answered your question.
It's no trap. It's no trap because you're only held by your own. If she decides, I don't believe in abortion, well, that's her. But he didn't trap her because she believed in premarital sex. She believed in no condom. She believed in busting it raw. You know what I'm saying? So she trapped herself. A man cannot trap a woman with a baby.
It's not possible.
See, I'm sorry. I'm gonna have to go toxic a little bit because that's bullshit. I was like, men do trap women with babies. They trap women when they're on their way up. And as we mentioned, as in that emotional, how do they do it? They start, how many times have, I don't know, because you guys are guys, but where a man will say, you know what, I want you to have my baby. And this woman thinking they're going to be together, that's that emotional manipulation. This woman think they're going to be together. And next thing you know, she pregnant because he said, man, I just want you to have my baby. And so, yes, men trap women all the damn time. You know what? As a matter of fact, they trap women so that if they feel that it'll slow them down because their trajectory is somewhat different than theirs and they want to slow them down and keep them in the house, that's where the whole barefoot and pregnant concept came from, because that's where they believe the woman deserved to be at some cases. Then
that's not
also
what that's from.
Well, no, I'm saying they want you barefoot and pregnant in the house because the workforce was for the man.
She
And
didn't
so if a
choose because she
man
wasn't
feels
going
like
nowhere.
she needs to be back in the house, then he gonna trap her with a baby. Or when a woman trying to leave a relationship, next thing you know, here come that maybe baby, because he was maybe on his way out the door and he was scared. And so he trapped her with a baby. Now, if she, and 9 out of 10, these men who do this, they already know the emotional state of the woman. They already know what she, her own personal thought process as it pertains to abortion and whatnot. And so they do play on that. So if I'm a woman and I say I don't believe in abortions, and they say, you know, and now I will acknowledge this, she did have the option to use birth control. She did have the option to say, hey, put a condom on, or whatever the case may be.
Okay, thank you.
But on that same token, that means men cannot complain when women trap them. Then they can't say, because they have agency over their own body.
Women
And so
been trapping
therefore,
them.
if they spraying up the club, then they can't say that woman trapped them because they chose to spray up the club. So we're going to do, I'm with Nick on this one when he said equality. So we're going to call it equality. Then that means these men are some gold digging bitches too, right? If we're going to say equality, it means that men are out here trapping too. It means men have agency over their body as well. And they're choosing to use their agency over their body to keep somebody down.
So if they're married, it's still trapping? They get married and they have a baby, but the income deficit, the gap is real big. One's an A-lister, other one's is J-Lo and her dancer. And he's trapping her if he gets her pregnant. That's what you're saying? Even if they're
What
married.
I'm saying, if she does not want to be pregnant at that time, but because it's in the confines of a marriage, who the hell's going to use a condom? Now,
If
she
she doesn't
could
wanna
have
be
put birth
pregnant,
control. She could have
gets the
put
last
birth
say
control.
so.
I'm just saying, if you're being married and it's not, and they talked it out and they're not in alignment, like she said, I don't want to have a kid right now because I'm doing X, Y, Z, then he should be like, you know what? I support that. And they both work on whatever birth control they plan on using, come to a mutual agreement. But if she say, I don't want to have a kid right now, and they see, he poking holes in her condom, his condoms.
Yeah, because women have done that. That's true. Y'all know about that trick.
That's what I'm saying. So, yeah.
So I'm just saying.
Nick said it's open season. Okay, then, fine.
I'm just saying that it happens. To say it doesn't happen is bullshit. It happens.
Okay.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
I'm saying do better. Nick's saying it's open season. Y'all
No, that's not what Nick
is.
is saying. That's not what Nick is saying.
Okay, what is Nick
That's
saying?
not what Nick is saying. All I'm saying is that it does happen. I agree with SNM. Like it happens, y'all. Like I'm not. Listen, I don't think it's a huge problem because it's not that many y'all that's making. I just don't, right? And not to mention, some of y'all just really are good at not being moms anyway. So it's not like somebody gonna really trick y'all out of that position, especially those of you who are like career driven.
Shade.
No. I'm saying, like, if you're a woman who's been career driven, you're not finna sit there and be like, oh my God, just all of a sudden busting in wide open without a condom. All right. If you're a high functioning, high performing woman who's in that realm or whatever, you're probably able to have sex without, getting pregnant. Okay. So I'm just giving those women props enough to say that when you look at socioeconomically, the women who are doing better are less likely to just get accidentally pregnant, especially by a bum ass nigga. You know what I'm saying? But it does happen, especially closer to each other's proximity. But I feel like, to Jay's point, it's all about perspective. Right? Because Jay, yes, in the situation, you can get trapped in. You can be in a marriage and then have a baby to trap you. There's people who are towards the tail end of their marriage, and then the person decides, let's do a keep a nigga baby type of situation because they want to keep them trapped in the marriage. So marriage in and of itself, you know what I'm saying? But you want to know who feels trapped? My guy KD. He says he feels trapped out here in these dating single streets. Matter of fact, I want to get him right. He says this dating shit sucks. It's addictive, not freeing. I like my peace, no emotional strings and intimacy. I'd rather pay for the experience, no drama, right? And they do call him the sniper. He is a sniper, right? The Slim Reaper is what they call him, right? So what are y'all thoughts in terms of him? I mean, he's a young man, ridiculously rich. People know him. I can imagine the challenges that he has to deal with, but he has his perspective in regards to just rather paying for the experience or engaging. I mean, instead of having to emotionally commit. He says it's addictive. I thought that was interesting. But what are your thoughts in his position in terms of, his vantage point? And do you guys think that, like, when you hear all this conversation about men who are six figures or whatever, right? I sometimes feel like you hear them kind of emotionally disconnecting, looking at things more transactionally, or feeling like they have to get to a certain status to get what they want. And I'd have to imagine there's a certain level of disconnect emotionally that happens in that journey. So what are you guys' thoughts in terms of, is this something that's just for the KDs of the world, or do you think that also guys who maybe feel more accomplished are just having a hard time finding the right thing? He mentions he likes his peace, right? So what are your thoughts on that?
So I'm going to jump in first on this one because I say kudos to you, sir. And you know why? Because I'm happy that you're honest about this, because it shows a level of maturity, i.e. self-awareness, that you may have in regards to yourself. Now, true enough, it looks like you opting out of some emotional labor, because that could be the immature side of you where you can't handle the emotional labor that comes with the relationship. But the fact that you was honest enough to recognize that you can't handle the emotional labor, I support that. And so I'm going to say kudos to this. I actually think that for affluent men, so we're going to break it down to two different sides. I think for affluent men, if they feel like they're at that level where they just need the punani and they don't want the ties that comes with it, then kudos to them, because they have more to lose, so to speak, right? Because they already identified that they have XYZ. Like, look at Chris Brown. He also was another one who stated that he's not trying to have relationships because it's to maintain his own wealth, right? It's costly to be in some of these relationships, and which is some of the concerns of the poorer folks, who put it that way. But anyways, with that being said, I think it's one of those things where he had to outweigh what's the risk, what's the reward for him. He said, hey, my reward is my own personal peace. I get to punani. Hopefully he's wrapping it up and he's not getting no STDs or STIs. And he's definitely not in Houston where there's a high rate of this going on, or the DR where AIDS is on the, so kudos to you, sir, and anybody else who think like that. I say this is great. Unfortunately, on the women's side, this means some of these high value men no longer see, how can I say? I guess I won't say they no longer see themselves as the prize per se, but they see themselves as, hey, I'm providing this transaction, which unfortunately translates to other men in different demographics who may say, oh, you know what? We complain about transactional gold diggers and so forth, but let's go this route now. So just depending on the side of the spectrum you're on, I say kudos. On the other side, I'm just like bullshit. So for the people who are looking at this and they're saying, hey, I want to be a six figure or a high value man, or whatever the phrase is now, then it becomes, oh, well, I'm going to keep this transactional because I'd rather just pay for the punani because I'm a high value and it's not worth my time and resources or whatever. And for them people, they're like, oh, but she's a gold digger. Well, sir, you wanted a gold digger. So, and she ain't want no broke nigga, as they say. So go ahead and let her dig this gold, recognize this role that you decided to play, and then don't complain about it later on when you're like, oh, women are gold diggers because I made this transactional. You made that choice. So live in it, breathe in it, sleep in it, lay in it. Do you?
Okay, let me push all the way back on that foolishness that was whatever. There was some good stuff in there. It was some nuggets in there. And then you said something about, and then he realized that men are not the prize. And I was like, okay, she lost me. Okay, clearly she is on some other stuff right now.
She lost everyone.
That is the crux of what the problem is. He is the prize. Men like him, Paul Pierce, this high value male that people keep talking about, it makes them the prize. And because he's the prize, he realized that now when he deals with women, he's got to try to factor out and filter out how many women are just after my money, how many of them really just like me because I'm KD, right? And so what he decided was, hey, I'm just going to go for the ones who I know just want the money. At least then we both understand what the situation is. We can keep pushing. She got the good kush. I got the money. Swap. Keep pushing. No baby trapping, no scandals, no nothing. I ain't got to call you in 3 days. I ain't got to check up on you. I ain't got to send you tickets to my games. KD said the quiet part out loud. I'm going to just pay for it. And the internet lost his mind. And I think y'all tripping. Let's be real. Convenience culture is not new, right? We've been swiping left and right on dating and connection and making it as quick and easy as we can for the longest, right? So we've been trained to expect instant gratification over with zero emotional attacks. We order like Uber Eats, right? You want affection, you subscribe. You want sex, it's an app for that. So if he say pay for it, he's not inventing nothing. This ain't new. It's almost an evolution of a consciousness. The man is simplifying things. He's just expressing what's already normalized. we've reduced intimacy anyway into a product with customer service complaints. Like it's, man, he wanted to be out with me. My WAP is good. It's just, we've already commodified the whole thing, right? So all I'm saying is let's just skip to the end. I think Durant's doing that. All he's saying is not new. It's not edgy. It's just a luxury version of emotional detachment. And if that's where we are, then fine. But the real question is, are we creating relationships to protect our peace, like he said, or just creating situations that protect us from feeling anything at all? And then when you get old, where does that leave you?
Like Paul Pierce. I mean, Paul Pierce, I think, is single and chilling. Nigga got the little silk shirt on doing his show. Like, hey, what's happening? I think you guys said some really good things. But like usual, you guys don't dig deeper into what's actually being said. So let me help you here a little bit, right? He says, this dating stuff sucks. Why would he say that? Let's think about that. That sounds like somebody who's out here dating and he says it sucks. He goes on. It's addictive, not freeing. Right? It doesn't sound like a person who's having a hard time. It's like a person who's out there just, oh my God, it's like a drug. You know what I'm saying? I'm getting high off of it. You know what I'm saying? What is it bringing me? All this coochie out here. Oh my God, it's addictive. It's not freeing, pulling me towards the pussy is what he's saying, right? Because he continues, I like my peace, which tells me that he's had bad experiences with pussy that disturbed his peace. Like he's emoting. He's building a narrative here. He is telling us what's in his heart and his soul right now. Like, I like my peace. No emotional strings. What he is saying is when he's had emotional strings and or ties, his peace was disturbed. I mean, at this point in time, I don't even really hear anything that talks about money at all, right? And he continues. And intimacy. And this is where I think some people get tricked. He says, I'd rather pay for the experience, no drama. I think what Katie is saying, he's a fuckboy. That's what Katie, like, because the way y'all made it sound, y'all think he's moving transactional. He's not. He's out here dating. He's treating women kindly, being a gentleman that his mama raised him to be. Right? He's having dalliances with women, and he probably realizes don't want him for nothing more than at least his perception of his wealth and who he is at this time, right? He's going to get married one day, eventually, when his playing career is over, but he's a hooper. He's focused right now. He wants to play, win another championship, etc. So he wants peace because that's the kind of guy he wants, but he also wants love. Y'all read people's stuff, and y'all automatically just paint them into the worst person. I hear a cry for help here. I hear somebody who does still want love. If y'all may not recall, I think he was engaged once upon a time to a good, clean Christian girl, if I remember correctly. Maybe it didn't work out. You know what I'm saying? But it doesn't mean that the desire is still not there. So yes, right? Maybe he's intimating that where he's at right now, he'd rather pay for experiences. But let's be honest, though, that doesn't mean he's just only paying for the pussy, right? That means he's paying to create vibes. What does that experience probably look like for a nigga worth $1,000 million, right? You know what I'm saying? And do you think those women who, yes, maybe they're attracted to him because that's part of it, but that's not the only thing? You know what I'm saying? He got some conversation, don't he? Some, you know what I mean? So all I'm saying is, I get it. It's easy for us to make him a two-dimensional caricature, right? As some rich guy who's going to end up like Paul Pierce. You know what I'm saying? I don't want that for him. I don't see that for him. I just think that where he's at right now, he's focused, but he's also having a hard time, which brings me to the other point. There are men out here, rich and or regular, who are having a hard time telling the difference between the real quality women and the rest of them who are not so quality, okay? There are some men out here just having a tough time. You know what I'm saying? And we so quick to just blame it on, oh, men are not talking to women as much. No, some of y'all don't even really deserve to be talked to the way that y'all dress or look or present out here in public. Not no man who's self-respecting, who has a budget in mind, who's trying to build for real. Y'all want people out here also fuck shit with their finances flaws in the front and they're pretending that y'all can feel better about claiming them as opposed to building for real. And then y'all get mad at the guy in the Honda who you never look at in the first place. Anyway, that's a whole different ballgame, right? What I'm saying is that rich and or poor, there are men who can say the same thing. This dating stuff sucks, right? Right? Now, what they probably can't say is addictive because they're not getting as much play. But let's not pretend there aren't some guys who actually are. And we call those guys, you guessed it, fuckboys.
See, I got a question. I got to follow up with this.
Go ahead,
So, and this is only because since I want to be a little serious for a moment here and ask this question to you guys, you know? I genuinely want to know.
Okay.
So when men become like this, where like you say, you recognize that there may be some hurt and there should be some healing that probably need to occur and so forth. But when they make this type of statement that they just, and this is just modern men, regular men, not necessarily high value men, Do you think they're avoiding vulnerability
No.
as a form of protection for themselves?
Well, let me say this, right? We didn't talk about this story, but I do think it's appropriate to mention it now. We pathologize a lot of shit, right? It is completely possible and healthy for this young man who's making cajillions of dollars to just arrive at the conclusion that, hey, this dating shit sucks. There's a lot of women who want to fuck with me. There's a lot of ass out here. I mean, middle-aged men, young men, whoever men, if you got ass being thrown at you, there's a lot of men who have a problem, maybe kind of like holding off on all the ass, right? So I don't think that's anything crazy, right? He talks about liking his peace, which speaks to me as someone who understands what his peace looks like, right? And then also understand how it can be disturbed when you're talking about the emotional strings that come with women who are needy or from people in general. It doesn't even have to be women, right? He's talking about dating. It can just be from people in general, because anytime people feel like they have an emotional claw into you, they feel entitled or whatever, you got to deal with that shit. So I just think that his approach, there's nothing that I've seen his approach and intimacy, I'd rather pay for the experience. These are all logical conclusions that I think a healthy young man who's in a peak of his career or towards the downside of the peak of his career to make. And I just feel like just because he has that perception doesn't mean, first of all, I did not say that he has to heal. Maybe I did. I do think that people may have to. I don't think this is necessarily.
Huh? So you called him a fuckboy. So that would imply that he needs some healing.
No, that's no, let's not do that.
Maybe he's a fuckboy?
Even if I say he's a fuckboy, I think you can be a healthy fuckboy.
Oh, okay, well, sure.
I don't automatically assume that just because a person has certain characteristics that makes that they're damaged. So y'all think like most of us got fucked up shit within us, right? It's just that it shows up differently. So we're not perfect. There's some shit that maybe somebody would call us F for that, right? So what I'm saying is, whatever level of healthy that most of us who claim to be healthy have, a person can have this mindset and a person can be a fuckboy and still be healthy. That's what I'm saying. I don't think every fuckboy comes from some ruin that his mama didn't do. Because again, people can be like, you never met a person who just like loves love, who's a romantic person. There are some people who just like the vibe. They like the attraction. They like the build. They genuinely in their mind could be feeling like whatever, right? Now, when the relationship doesn't work out for various reasons, people say, oh, he's a fuckboy. But maybe it just wasn't enough there necessarily for that relationship to sustain anyway. But yes, he enjoyed getting to know you. He was charming and all that shit. But just because he was kind and charming doesn't mean that like he was love bombing you. I just feel like we use this shit just interchangeably to just, so yes, I jokingly can say he's a fuckboy, but I don't think just because you move in a way that people will call you a fuckboy is because you're not coming from a healed place. I'm saying everything he says right now makes complete sense. And I'm not surprised. I'm surprised that it's not even more crazier, because most of us can't imagine that type of access, that type of tension, right? So I think for the average person who is out here popping, then yeah, I can see them saying the same thing.
Well, so the reason why I asked that, though, about the vulnerability and if it's a form of protection is because I think it ties directly into this mentality. I'm talking outside of KD, who can afford this type of mentality, but for a regular Joe Smo, so to speak, seems to be contributing to the whole male loneliness epidemic that they keep talking about. And so I'm curious in regards to, will this continue have long-term effects towards this male loneliness epidemic that people are constantly saying men are suffering from right now?
Okay, so all right, so the dating pool got predatory. Okay, it got predatory, and men decided they wanted to opt out when dates became just as expensive or more expensive than escorts, and dates could also fly back and be issues of consent when escorts would not. So I think people made some logical choices about risk aversion and their economics. And they said, you know what? Because I was on a trip with a guy. I went on a guy's trip, and the guy ended up being my roommate. We started talking or whatever. And he was talking about his experiences or whatever. And the guy has no problem. He has no problem meeting women. I've seen him in action. But the dude was like, look, man, I ain't going to hold you. He was like, honestly, going somewhere and just, you know what I'm saying, shelling out my dough, having my moment, whatever, is so much simpler in some ways. And I understood what he was saying. Because you can spend out that same amount of dough and be in a relationship or just be dating, and then find out the chick means you no good, and find out you've wasted all this money and the sex was even bad. At least you're getting professional. You know what I'm saying? I'm just
So
saying.
you don't think there's going to be an uptick in the male loneliness epidemic if people continue to have this mindset? That's all I'm just asking.
No, because men won't be lonely. They'll be going to pay for company. And then you know what will happen? The people who aren't professionals will up their game and lower their prices.
even though women are opting out at the same time.
I think we're conflating stuff. That's why I try to sneak in there.
Okay, go ahead.
I hear what you're saying, but I think you're conflating things, right? You're talking about guys who are high functioning, high performing. Those guys, they're going to always be able to get women. When I hear y'all talk about this whole male loneliness, I feel like y'all pull out incels as like some type of boogeyman to caution men, which is fair, right? Because we'll pull out Sexy Red maybe to caution y'all. So I get it, right?
Or the
In
cat
terms
woman.
of, but the fact of the matter is, I do think that there's a completely different things. Guys are, first of all, I don't even think the majority of guys are opting out. What the fuck are y'all talking about with some of this conversation? I do think there are some guys, don't get me wrong. I just don't think a majority of guys are opting out. Guys, if you meet somebody, you stumble on, went to a barbecue through a friend or whatever, people find ways to find each other all the time. I can't tell you how often I walk around or drive around and I see two people who are just ugly as shit, or like, why do they even exist? And they're together in love. And it's like, get the fuck out of here. They met each other and they found it. So what the fuck are we talking about here, y'all? Like they were two homeless people under the same bridge and they were able to somehow strike up a conversation and be able to beat each other's lives. Y'all are out here wilding, right? So yes, maybe people are opting out of certain types of relationships. And I feel like y'all kind of are still missing it. I think he is still having probably full relationships with people, right? But maybe to your point, S&M, as far as the protection, that's what I actually want to speak on. I do think it is, in fact, a protection mechanism. But I don't necessarily think it's the one that is a problem necessarily, right? Because when you learn things, you are supposed to change. You're supposed to move differently. If you know that 9 out of 10 people that you meet, women in particular, don't mean you any good, you're supposed to protect yourself, right? So I think, not saying you even got to be KD, I'm saying that the person who is having certain experiences, yes, they may find that they may have to do certain things to protect themselves, right? For me, I'll even admit there are times that I have to detach emotionally because if there's nothing worth there for me to keep my emotions in, it's completely healthy for me to realize that, process it, and then boop, boop, drop them shits off somewhere, right? So I do think that maybe what healthy looks like may be different for some people, but I do think that you can get to a space where, yes, you're protecting yourself in a healthy way because you see what's happening and you're engaging with them. So if he knows that 9 out of 10, he's not saying, I'm going to stop fucking with the 9 out of 10. That's not what he's saying. No. What he is saying is that he's going to do it in a certain way that protects his peace, right? And he's going to make sure that he's not kind of timing himself up emotionally, right? And he just rather pay for the experience. This sounds like a guy who's going on dates, who's going on trips, who's having the time of his life. And I'm saying, even you don't even have to be rich. Because guess what? For regular people, the experience might be the restaurant down the street. It might be putt-putt golf. Right? So when we try to make it seem like there aren't regular guys out there who have the same mentality, I'll pay for the experience. They're not outright paying for pussy. That's prostitution. If you take on 3 or 4 dates and you end up getting some, all's well that ends well, right? You know what I'm saying? And guess what he did to get there? He paid for the experience. What he wasn't doing, though, was investing in a relationship. You can have 2 guys, and I'll land with this. You can have 2 guys who go about 4 dates. They both went to the same restaurant, same guys, same girls, right? But the difference is that one may look at those dates as an investment. I'm getting to know her. Maybe she's wifey material. I want to really get to date her. I'm having feelings. Who knows? This could be something for real, for real. The other guy may be like, this was my budget. You know, after 3 or 4 days, if I ain't fucking, ripcord, you know what I'm saying? It's what I'm willing to spend, right? Both guys can show up the same way, and Shorty will never know. Which is why in the last episode I said to myself, at least not initially, I could empathize with women dealing with fuckboys. Call back. But anyway, let's go on. Let's move on. Let's see, I got something else on this.
So maybe it's a high earners thing, right? The struggle to find love. Maybe it's a problem that comes when you earn a lot of money. Because Kiki Palmer was recently doing her thing on her podcast, and Kiki recently shared that she felt like high earning women like her often feel boxed in when it comes to love. She's challenging the idea that being financially successful somehow will limit your dating pool. She's saying, like, just pick who you pick. Your income makes you too intimidating to be loved the way you want, then just keep looking for someone who's not intimidated. So tonight, what I guess I really want to ask is, can a woman thrive financially and still find genuine financial partnership? Or are we still hung up on outdated ideas about power and compatibility? Like, does everybody have to be 6 feet tall, 6 figures still? Kiki says no, I think. What do y'all think?
First, can I just say, I don't know if there was any episode on the BLC pod where I said anything that made it seem like I ain't got love for Kiki Palmer. But if I did, Kiki, and you watching, girl, you know, I wasn't really familiar with Kiki initially. There was that whole situation they had with her whole boyfriend situation. There was some little questionable things, the whole Usher thing with her outfit choice, right, in particular, but other things. So I was like looking at her with a little side eye. And plus she's young. I mean, you know, she's probably old enough to be my daughter. So, you know, whatever. But I thought she'd make a great Angela Bassett in the Angela Bassett story. So anyways, she's a very talented young lady. But anyways, so at first I didn't really know her like that, right? And so when she was doing some stuff, I don't know. But lately, when I saw her on Club Shay Shay, that young lady is very mature for her age. You know, very mature for her age. You know what I'm saying? And when I heard this conversation, it was right in line with the type of wisdom that she seemed to share. She was talking like an auntie, but she was like in a young girl's body. Kudos to Kiki. You know what I'm saying? Like, I mean, she still misstepped. She was young. But like the depth of wisdom. So for her, like talking about the challenges, and I get that. But she strikes me, and I think I've heard her say this, like she wouldn't let money get in the way of her finding love for real, for real. She doesn't use that metrics as a disqualifier for her to find somebody that she could build with for real, for real. And if you don't believe me, look at her baby daddy, right? So my point is, he's still asking, Kiki, do you love me? Are you right? No. She's like, no, I'm not in anyone. But anyways, and I didn't even know that, like, if you remember the music video that I was from, I think Drake looked like he was a little poop-butt nigga, and old girl was. Anyways, the point is, right, that I think women who are in a financially advantageous position may have to broaden their perspectives, have to open their minds, maybe have to hear the wisdom from the mouth of babes to realize that, yes, I get it. Money's important, but shorty, if you got it, what else do you need in your life, right? Is there a man that can compliment you, right? That can hold you down, that can support you? Listen, I was joking before about the trapper, you know, woman baby or whatever, but the truth is there are guys who can be masculine, who are great men out there, who can also be nurturers, who can be great partners and supporters of their women, dominating out there in the world, right? But still being able to handle things in their relationship the right way or whatever way is right for them. You know what I'm saying? So I get it. That's why that girl, the way that she handled money, I think there's a lot of wisdom, and maybe more young ladies should follow that version of Kiki, just not the one that was wearing that tacky outfit at the Usher concert. You know what I'm saying? Or the one that got knocked up by a nigga that she wasn't married to. But listen, like I said, everybody makes, you know what I'm saying, choices in their lives, right? And I think she is going places. And so I'll just say, listen, she does present a really good point, because I feel like far too many people are living for other people, right? Like you're afraid of what? How your girlfriends and your country club vibes are going to look at you for dating a dude who may not be whatever, but like they're lonely, they're single or unhappy. Like, do you want to live? We got to stop living for other people, y'all. And we also, and part of doing that is defining for ourselves what we prioritize and why, right? Like if you got it, in terms of financially, and you may need him to at least hold his own down, and he's not taking away anything from you, and he can add to you in so many different ways, what's the problem? You know what I'm saying? But I feel like so many women get hung up, and then they want to complain. And honestly, y'all pretend like y'all don't hold shit over niggas, but the fact that y'all don't even think y'all should even be dating them niggas, even when you give them a chance, guess what? They can still smell that. You know what I'm saying? It's hard for me to believe that as many of y'all successful women that are talking about, you know how many men out there are insecure, but I'm sure there are. I'm sure there are. And I'm sure you did absolutely nothing to contribute to that, huh? So in conclusion, I'll just say, man, if y'all want happiness, find it where it lies within yourself truly, not where you think it should lie because that's what other people think. You know what I'm saying? And Kiki Palmer, man, she does. She's absolutely right. Kudos to her. You know what I'm saying? I don't even know what movie she does next. I'm not going to go see it, but I might mention it on the show on her behalf. You know what I'm saying? That girl is talented and she is wise beyond her years. High earning women do deserve love, but they deny it to themselves because they go by outdated. You want to talk about outdated? They go by things that just don't benefit them. Find a man who loves you for you, girl, and not just your money. Okay? You're welcome.
I actually concur with a portion of what you said, Nick, in regards to finding someone who loves you for you and not having other people dictate what your relationship should look like. I think though that we do a disservice to a certain group of women. Like I know we're talking about high earners, but Pookie and Ray Ray, who's driving their girlfriend car, probably think their girlfriend is a high earner and they gave that man a chance. I think we don't acknowledge the amount of women, aka Black women, who actually would be considered a high earner compared to their male counterpart that they're currently with, as, hey, they did give this person a chance. They are looking for love, like Baby Boys, shows like that summed it up, where these guys are literally taking advantage because they try and get their rap career off the ground, or they're trying to, let me stop. I ain't gonna go for the rappers, whatnot. But anyways, the point I'm making is that I think we do a disservice by assuming that everybody is looking for that man that makes more than them, right? That's why you have so many women who actually are cool with 50-50 in that example, right? And then you have the women who talk about the traditional conversation of with men. I think that's the social media that is putting that out there. I think social media has made it seem like this is what we want, this is what we need, because of this whole soft life era that social media is saying that we need to be in. And I think that's where we need to focus away from, because at the end of the day, if you go out in the streets, yes, there are some women that say, oh no, I need a man to make more than me. But there's a lot more women who are actually willing to compromise on whatever it is because they want that man in the house with them, or because there's a saying, I'd rather have a no good ass man than no man at one point for certain generations, And so while this sounds like I'm all over the place, it's because I honestly feel mixed. I have mixed feelings about this. I think that we do a disservice to the women who aren't necessarily at the value where Kiki is, but they still consider high earners and have high value for whoever they're with, because that person may have less. Now, when we talk about the extremely high value, like, so for example, what's your favorite person that you like to talk about, Nick? The one who had the baby impregnated herself through test tube baby.
Ebony K.
Yeah, that's her. Like, so people like her, who's on the extreme end, opposite end of this conversation, like, no, you have to make more than me. I'm not dating a bus driver. I'm not dating this. He got to do that. Those people's voices are so loud that we don't see the voices like Kiki, who's like, no, I'm good with this. I'm good with making more than my man. And because I'm looking for love, I'm looking for these other characteristics, and money isn't the thing that I go by. What I will note, though, is that there have been studies that show that some men egos cannot handle when the woman makes more than them. And we do talk about, somebody say, well, it could be their attitude. It could be like, do they throw it in their face and so forth. But they're actually said there's studies that outside all those contexts, they state that the male ego feel threatened if their partner earns more than them, simply because of the way society is set up. And so they feel like they don't have the same respect if their partner makes more than them. And respect is important for men. So
I think there are also studies that would show that there are some women whose egos feel threatened when their dude look better than them. It just, you know what I'm saying? It's just, if you think about it.
Did you make this study up? Because I can cite my study. Where your study at?
My study is the fact that women get jealous when their girlfriend look better than them. Now, say something.
Well, there's actually a study. Well,
right.
No, there's actually a study that shows that women actually hurt. They set women up. There was a study that actually came out pertaining to that.
They pick women go out and they try to pick more unattractive people to be in their crew so they can look better. We know what y'all up to. We peeped it. But anyway, it's a whole nother story. So in the vein of killing all the noise, which hopefully I began to do with the first statement, Kiki is letting everybody know what I've been saying all this time, is that she does not need a man who makes what she makes. She needs a man who understands who she is. That's what you need, ladies. Y'all so stuck on income brackets, you miss the real flex. It's emotional alignment. She's not asking for a matching paycheck. I'm not looking for a matching paycheck. You want somebody to match your energy. She's asking for peace. Kiki's not choosing a man for his money, his status, or his clout. How many likes he got, how many followers she got. She's trying to start choosing based on emotional presence. Security without ego. Love that doesn't compete. It complements. And that scares folks, especially men sometimes, who are still trying to prove their worth with their wallet, who got to show up with their character instead of just the commas in a bank account. But newsflash, emotional intelligence is the new luxury. Emotional intelligence is the flex, y'all. You say you want a high-value woman until she defines value for herself. And when she start making her own valuations, even the other women who say they're high-value women, they criticize her. And when that definition doesn't center them in their paradigm, then now even she's too independent for y'all. And men sometimes men do feel emasculated. But that's their projection, and that's not her problem. It should not be any part of her perspective, and I'm glad she didn't put it in her paradigm. Kiki is not confused. I applaud her. Kiki, girl, I'm here for you. I've been with you ever since you won that spelling bee. You know what I'm talking about. She know exactly what she's doing. She's leading with her heart and not her bank account. She's done trying to shrink from fragile men. She's done trying to be what everybody thinks she should be with. And I agree with that. She doesn't need a man. She's getting to the point where now she's going to choose a man. And that's a place of power. She doesn't need a man. She got a baby already. Got a baby already. And she had a baby with a dude.
No, she needs a man. But listen,
I like the phrase, she doesn't need a man. She doesn't wants a man.
She needs to choose a man. Because I'm going to tell you, if she's not a whole individual by herself, and she's waiting on some dude to come along and make her whole.
How do we get that? She's not whole within herself. What the fuck are we talking about?
Saying she need a man. I'm saying she needs to be whole in herself, man, and her own.
Bullshit, man, about the need a man. That wasn't the crux of what you were saying. It was just take everything and run with it.
It's part of a phrase, man. You cut me in the middle. It was part of a phrase.
Oh, my bad.
Okay. So my point here is this, I applaud Kiki. I think she has learned the lessons that people learn from maturity and the wisdom that comes from experience. And she has found out that you had best pick your person, not upon what they make, not even what they do, but who they are, what their values and principles are, what they stand on. And if they vibe with you and if they have the emotional intelligence to work out the differences between you. So Kiki, you're doing it right, girl. You all grown up now and I see it.
Yes, I mean the way you said that towards the end there, Jay. You were Kiki calling
right.
like she's of age. She's of age. I mean,
she's already 18 now, you know.
I mean, you just mentioned the whole spelling. Anyways, I believe that alone. So first of all, I mean, my brain, I just picking up real time.
You've been scoping since then.
So I want to push back on SNM so bad because first of all, I want to call cap on a couple of things. This idea of what a higher earner is, y'all, it is emblematic of the Lulu that y'all women be under, right? And this is part of the problem, meaning that just because, sis, you make $70,000 a year, not you in particular, I'm just talking about women in general, that feel like, oh, I make 70, I'm a high earner. This Pookie and Ray Ray is just taking advantage of all the wealth that I... Girl,
it's a high earner when Pookie and Ray Ray ain't got shit.
What you're trying to do with the grading on the curve, I'm just trying to tell the American people, sis, your 70,000 does not make you a high earner. Sorry. It makes you a decent earner, a good earner. You're above median. But like, I feel like, and I'm going somewhere with this, because some of these same women who feel like they make 70,000 are that much better than some guy who makes 50. Because guess what? They think you guessed it, S&M, relative to that nigga, that they are a high earner. And you're not. Maybe relative to him. And that's part of the delulu that's stopping some of these regular ass, earning ass women from being with men because they're too busy looking down their noses at them because they make a couple of $1,000s more than them and maybe have a degree, etc. Right? You got regular ass women. If Kiki, do you love me, who makes way more money, is probably way more talented than the majority of these women who talk like this, can say, hey, you know what? I realize there's more out there than guess what? Yo $70,000 making ass can too. So let's stop. And then we always got to compare it to the Pookie who has absolutely nothing. I love the boogeyman Pookie when it fits my argument. In this particular case, that's not the case. These women are probably dating dudes, again, within proximity of their income level. Just because the shit didn't work out, just because you gave your box up for the low, does not mean that he's a Pookie, like not in a financial way. It wasn't like you had to give him money. So what if he borrowed your car a couple of times? He put gas in it. But the point I'm trying to make is that we got to distinguish between the regular ass women who are making regular ass money, who somehow get inflated egos because they think they're that much better relatively to the nigga than what the market says or what niggas in general are doing. Okay? That's we want to pause there. This conversation was about high earning women like the Ebony case who made the choice to ride it out alone. And we're seeing what that choice looks like. Kiki wants something different for herself. So for those women who maybe make 150, who maybe make these women, I would say, yes, queen, you're making 200,000. Yes, you're a high earner. Cool. Do you have somebody? Do you want somebody? Let's start there. You know what I'm saying? Like, to me, yes, it may be hard, but it's not impossible. Some of y'all talking about dating Mike, if that's what the fuck it takes. But listen, with all the options shit y'all got out there, stop fucking complaining. If you all that in the bag of chips, which some of y'all are not, but I get it because you got a degree, you make a certain amount of money, cool. But prove it. Stop talking about it and be about it. You know what I'm saying? I get tired of hearing that shit. So at least Kiki is saying, hey, you know what? I'm smart. I have wisdom. I understand that a relationship is more than just money. So you know what? I'm going to open up my dating pool. Wow, that's a fucking crazy concept, huh? The fuck are we talking about? That's all he's basically saying. Right? And the fact that we even have this conversation and bust out the pookies to have it is sad. It's a sad commentary.
See, I'm gonna push back on your pushback because I wasn't talking in regards to those women who are in proximity. I'm talking about we don't give the women who do give those people credit. Like the people who give the pookies and ray-rays, we're not giving them credit. We're acting like all women out here
not Aishas.
Right,
I'm saying we're acting like all women out here aren't engaging with homosexuals. We're acting like all women out here ain't letting men in their lives just because they got some good dick. And that's what I'm saying is that part. So when you're talking about the 70,000 to the 50,000 in proximity, and that's a completely different conversation from where I was going.
Which is also a completely different conversation.
Yeah.
Wait, which is what? And so what I'm saying is what I'm saying is that we don't give enough credit to the women that do engage with men who are making significantly less than them. We don't give enough credit to that. Just like I pointed out that we don't give enough credit for the women who support 50-50.
That's not true.
That's also another way where men are, but I'm saying
you know where they get credit from? When they married. When they have a successful relationship.
You said that's when they'll get credit?
Yes. What the fuck is the point? When should we give people credit for real? Like we just go, you've been in a relationship for 6 months. Right.
Everybody gets a certificate.
What the fuck?
So basically what you're saying is that Kiki gets no fucking credit then right now, even though that's her mindset, because she's not married.
No.
Kiki is speaking to an ideology that I believe can help women get married. So we don't have to abandon marriage as a whole just for you to be right, SNM. Right? And
I'm just saying, the way you was making it sound like, you made it sound like without marriage that the people ain't got no credibility. That's all I'm saying. That's what it made it sound like.
No, I wasn't talking.
That's why I say I'm gonna get that Woman D shirt, because that's what it sounded like to me.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? And I'm pretty sure it's gonna be some folks who felt the same way. But what I do want to say in regards to, I actually think it's a feather in a man's hat when the woman feels like she doesn't necessarily need him in the traditional sense of what need is, but wants him, because that means he's bringing value somewhere else. He's bringing value via another mechanism, like the emotional intelligence that Jay talked about. I think that when somebody wants the companionship of that man, then like I said, it's a feather in their hat. So I don't think necessarily, so when you say need, I think I'd rather have somebody who wants versus need, because need to me, when we talk about need, it means like I can't live without you, or because I need your resources, or I need this, or I need that, versus I want you because I love you, or you compliment me, or you're bringing this and you're making me whatever, That's why.
If you wait long enough, she'll be making sense. You just gotta wait on it. You just hitting.
Is that what it is? Because
you just gotta wait.
I'm still waiting. I'm like,
whatever. Anyways, you know what you can be waiting on? You can be waiting on friends and expectations. How about that? Since you still waiting.
That bus still ain't come, dog.
Whatever.
Where's my schedule today?
Whatever. That's what I'm gonna say. Yeah, whatever. I have a valid point. Multiple points.
There was one there somewhere.
We're gonna have mad women in the comment, probably commenting to my points being valid, because there's a lot of women who think like me, who say, I don't want to need you. I want you. And there's a significant difference between that. And Kiki is saying, I don't need you because I'm taking care of the financial piece. I want you in my life.
Okay. I'll say so. Okay, so y'all drawing a distinction that because she doesn't need someone financially, that means that she couldn't need them in other ways. That's cap
no,
too,
I'm
right?
saying she's saying they want. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying I want you because you're bringing other value. I don't need this particular thing. The Maslow hierarchy.
No, that's not. No. I'm asking y'all. Okay, it sounds like y'all are assuming that because she makes more money, that she's automatically going to want. That means that she just wants the person because she doesn't need them. And I'm trying to draw the distinction between if y'all feel like the only way a woman can need a man is financially. That's what it sounds like y'all saying. Okay, cool. All right, if you're not saying that, that's cool. Because what I'm saying is that, okay, great. Because what I'm saying is other ways that a woman can need a man. It doesn't have to be financially. And so if we're trying to differentiate between she wanting a man or needing a man, I mean, who cares? Did the relationship last or not? We spent so much fucking time in these like word salad shits. Like in 20 some odd years, right? Does it matter? Can you define whether I need my wife or I want my wife? Who's going to draw that distinction for real? After 20 years, I can't even really see my life without her for real. Does that mean I need her or do I just want her? Like, y'all can spend the time doing a semantic dance. Who fucking cares? Did it help? Did it hold the relationship together? Did it make the relationship better? Right? So I get it. Maybe you don't want to interpret your perspective is, I just want my significant other. I don't need them. Cool. Somebody else may be different. So I don't care about that. I just care about, does it last? right? And all I'm saying is that to me, that wise young woman tells me that she might understand that value doesn't just come from money. So there may be things that she values in a man that she feels she needs in order to submit to him, even though she makes more money than him. Is that a thing? So regardless of how y'all want to use the word, there are some women who will say that she needs a man to show up a certain type of way. So yeah, she could say she wants a man to show up a certain
Just
type
like
of
she needs dick, she needs this. You could put need anywhere, like you
Exactly.
said, tragedy, okay? So you know what? We're
Thank
going
you
to
for
move
coming around to my
on
side, SNM.
because I was like, I see where you're going with this, with the semantics and whatnot. So you know what? Let's talk about expectations because clearly we had different expectations on what that conversation was about and where we was going with it. And so, which brings us to our next segment, the expectations of friendship. And so there was recently a clip where I believe her name is Shekinah, where she was speaking about her friendship with B. Simone and how B. Simone, when she was financially up and Shekinah was financially down and struggling, that B. Simone didn't help her out. She didn't throw no change her way. But at the same time, she was actually throwing change to folks who didn't actually need any type of money or need any type of assistance. And so, but may have wanted her care and her money anyways. And so with that being said, I'm just curious in regards to what do you think about this whole revelation, so to speak, between Shekinah and B. Simone? Was B. Simone obligated to help her friend who was down and out? And was there some sort of pride or sense of pride for Shekinah never to ask her? Like, was her expectations wrong that her friend was supposed to look out for? I'm just curious. Is there anything in regards to being a rich friend and helping somebody else out?
All right. So I want to slow this down for a second. And I want to say just very succinctly that sometimes the boundary is the blessing. And here's what I mean by that. Everybody's dragging B. Simone. Like loyalty should override the limits. But what if the real conversation is about the boundaries and that boundaries doesn't mean betrayal? And what I mean by that is sometimes the loudest stories, they're still incomplete. Everybody's talking about, oh, she didn't do this for her friend. But the bigger story to me is, yeah, we see Shekinah's pain, and it's valid. You know, she went through some struggle, but we don't know B's position. We don't know what she was dealing with at the time. Maybe she'd given before and gotten burned. Maybe she's holding space without holding the bills. Maybe she learned the hard way that sometimes helping the friends means not enabling the cycle. Right? If I give you a fish you eat for a day, I teach you the fish you eat for life. Right? We talk about friendship equity, but equity isn't always financial. There are other ways you can be a friend. Sometimes it's emotional support. Sometimes it's believing in your friend without bailing them out so they can learn the lesson and not have to circle back through it. And sometimes it's stepping back so they can step up. There's a really dangerous expectation in our culture. I don't know where we got it from. People be counting on people's pockets like if you got it and I need it, you owe me. And that's weird because survival doesn't equal like obligation. We're all here to make it. And yes, I can help you if I choose to help you, but it's not part of my story to make sure your story goes on. Because then what was the point of my story? Who's in charge of making sure my story goes on? She had to carry her own weight. You know what I'm saying? So just because somebody has access doesn't mean they have the capacity to carry you. Maybe B wasn't ghosting her friend. Maybe she was protecting her friendship that would have been crushed if she gave that lady the money and then went left. Because we've all seen it. Money gets involved and suddenly love turns into resentment. People start ducking you, not answering your calls. Now you're not just a friend, you're an ATM with memories, or worse, you're a bill collector they don't want to talk to. So yes, public compassion should match your private loyalty. I agree. If you like that out in the streets, you should be like that with your inner circle. I agree. But private loyalty also means knowing when not to give, when it's not wise, when you don't have it, when it's not healthy, when it's not good for your friendship, when it's not helpful. And that takes maturity. That's not malice. So my bottom line is that helping isn't always a handout. Real friendship isn't about showing up every time with money in their hands. It's about knowing how to show up without losing yourself. If B. Simone said no, maybe that was her way of staying a friend and not failing a friend. So I'm with her. I do the same thing. I got like a little budget. And after my little friend emergency fund budget is going, that's it. Everybody's got to wait for next month. I'm so sorry. Somebody got here before you. You know what I mean? But I can't tap me out trying to bail you out because I got people who still depend on me.
I don't know a lot about B. Simone, but she has a very sketchy track record as it relates to people that she calls her best friends. So I want to, because she's not famous enough for me to really make this about her necessarily, right? She was famous enough for this to be a topic because what this topic to me was about the expectations that you have amongst friends, especially when maybe one friend elevates financially and maybe the other friends did not. Right. I think that's an interesting conversation to have. So, I think, if Shekinah, whatever her name is, I thought it was dope that they was able to have the conversation because sometimes you don't really get to see people's ugliness for real, for real. And if you really were looking, you'd be able to see B. Simone show hers. And I think she's shown that side of her. So while people like her, there's a part of her that people don't like because the way she came across, it's tone deafness. There are other parts of the conversation or how burdenous it was for her not to be able to shop at one store. Now she has to shop at H&M, Crimea River type of shit, right? And so I just do think that there was ways that I just would not see her as say, that's a good friend. You know what I'm saying? I just wouldn't. I think the larger conversation starts with friends. How many of us have them? It's a cool song, but the song kind of intimates that they're not in abundance. Later on, we have a song that says, no new friends, which is an interesting thing to me because I think we overestimate how many friends we really have for real, for real. And so sometimes you realize that and you're in that position of no new friends and you're kind of stuck in this weird place. I think I know a little something about that, right? Because what exactly is friendship? If I was down and out, and I think my pride would probably get in the way, for sure. I know that for a fact, right? But a person that I called my friend did do anything to help me, and they were completely aware that I was down and out. Not that I would necessarily expect it, or maybe I would. Maybe that's the semantic part, because if friends mean X to me, and then this happens and there's no X, does that mean you're really my friend? I don't know. So I think it starts with how you define a friend for real, for real. So we use that word so loosely. I don't know that a person that I called my friend could see me down and out and not at least offer, even if I said no. You know what I'm saying? Even if it wasn't financial. I just don't know that I would see that person as a friend. So it's weird because I can't say expect it because in my friendships, I don't expect a lot of shit from people just in general. I'm not that kind of person who leans on people financially and otherwise, right? So I wouldn't necessarily expect it in that way. I guess I would be disappointed because it would reveal something to me that maybe I didn't see before because I'd have to really want it. Now, the question becomes, does the person have it? And I guess in B. Simone's case, as being a public figure, it's easier to say, oh, well, clearly you had it, you can clearly see I'm down. So I get where Shorty's coming from. And kudos to her for working through that friendship with her to remain friends. But I think it starts with, what do you define as friends? And so what I would suggest for people to do is we just find another word. Everybody doesn't have to be your friend, right? They can be associates. We cool. That's my peeps, my homie. Maybe we find a different word that's commensurate with the type of relationship you have. You kick it. You talk every now and then. When shit is great, you have a good time, right? But for me, being a little bit old school, part of my friendship definition includes when we're down. There's like a subchapter where I guess I do have expectations then, right? For my friends to show up a certain type of way. So I guess there you have it, right? I do expect my friend. Now, what it looks like may vary. And as a person who moves a certain type of way, I do also understand that people don't have it sometimes. So Jay, if that was the case in her case, you would hope that a friend would understand that you didn't have it, but that doesn't mean that you still can't show up as a friend. And if you're really your friend, you'd find other ways to show up. At least that's maybe what my definition of a friend looks like. Now, on the flip side, I do understand that people be watching podcasts, they don't know what the fuck is going on exactly, right? So I agree with you there. But when I heard her talk in that clip, it sounded like somebody who was really discussing how her friend was not really there for her. And it didn't necessarily have to show up a certain type of way. And then there was other parts of the clip that really made me question whether they were friends for real, for real. And don't even get me down the road of how women pretend to be friends when everything is all good, but the minute that something breaks up or shakes up, it's a problem all of a sudden, right? Fuck that bitch, right? So we've seen it from girls' trips where girls be getting killed, with friendships gone awry, right? So it's not like the whole idea of women being besties to me sometimes is tenuous at best. So ladies, if you're watching, I would be careful about the expectations that you have with your girlfriends. Or at least the ones you think are friends, because you'll be surprised when they show you that they're not the type of friends that you thought they were. And then you have a choice to make in terms of whether or not you want to remain friends. And one thing about getting older for me is I'm getting a chance to really look at things clearly and redefine or define them for myself. And I think if we're all kind of on that path, there are certain things you outgrow. And sometimes that includes, you guessed it, friendships. So I do think there are expectations to have. Because I think by defining the relationship in the first place, inherently, there is going to be some level of expectation. And I just think that in this particular case, she let her friend down. And I would no way, shape, or form ever want to be with somebody like P. Simone. Or at least I wouldn't call her my friend. Now, if I was just fucking, shit, maybe I'm leeching off her because I'm a fuckboy or some shit. Okay, cool, that's open. But she couldn't be my bestie. She damn sure couldn't be somebody I call a friend for real. But SNM, you're a woman, right?
Yeah,
Out here navigating these treacherous women's streets. Did I say something wrong that you disagree with?
No, as a matter of fact, you're batting 2 on this episode because I agree with this wholeheartedly. And to me, B. Simone was not a friend. And I'm going to tell you why she wasn't a friend. If you actually listen to a lot of what Shekinah, what she stated in regards to the piece that people seem to miss is the fact that she said that she was giving it to people who didn't even need it or want it or ask for it. She was just giving it out, like, here, you get some money, you get some money. And if she's doing this in front of her friend or her supposed friend, her alleged friend, who she know is clearly suffering, clearly struggling, she could have did that shit outside of her face. You know what I'm saying? She didn't have to be so generous in front of her if she wasn't going to be generous with her friend, right? Because what she said was that she's watching her do all this for other people who wasn't in the same position that she was in. And she was like, that's interesting. And then she cycled through it and was like, you know what? There's no expectation. I shouldn't expect her. And then because she suffered from the strong, independent Black woman stereotype that we internalize to our detriment, she was like, I got too much pride because I'm supposed to be the strong, independent Black woman, so I can't even ask for the money. But at the same time, she's still watching her so-called friend give other people money. And that she can have her own reasons because it is her money. She can give it to whoever the hell she want to give it to. And that's a fact. I'm not trying to say she should have been pocket watching, but it made her feel some type of way to watch this because she was calling her bestie, not just her everyday friend, not an associate, not an acquaintance, not a person who she ran on the street, strangers that she say hi and bye to. She called her a bestie. And you're telling me you're going to let your bestie suffer? You gonna see your bestie in this situation and you're not even going to try in any shape, way, or form to help her. She could have been like, yo, let me babysit the kids while you go out. It don't have to necessarily be financial, but it made it sound like she didn't help her at all. She just watched from outside and observed. And so B. Simone is the type of chick, to me, that will take her friends out and pick out one who she really not cool with and bully. That's what it seemed like. Like the woman who ended up dead, who she thought she was hanging out with her friends, and they came back to the States and Mexico, and they came back, and it turned out that they weren't friends because they were jealous of her for making X amount of dollars, right? Or the same people, remember the case where the Black woman went to the sleepover? Now, that has some racial connotations and so forth, but the Black woman who went to a sleepover with all these white folks who she thought was her friend, and she ended up dead at a sleepover because they weren't her friends. B. Simone gave me that energy when she was talking about that. When she kind of was talking about, I'm seeing her do this for other people. I'm seeing her do this. And no, she shouldn't have to do it for me per se, but it would have been nice if she would have offered. It would have been nice if she would have thought about it. It would have been nice that if she was doing, providing, but it wasn't a requirement because B. Simone didn't see her as a friend. As a matter of fact, B. Simone probably was like, yo, this is somebody who I can lord over my money and make her feel some type of way because I ain't helping her out in any shape, way, or form. Let me provide this emotional support so she can say, well, I'm there for you emotional. And then while she at the same time talking about, oh, I went from shopping at XYZ to H&M. It was like, oh, okay, well, your friend was probably shopping at the dollar store because she had them kids and she couldn't do nothing. And you bemoaning about the fact that I understand your circumstances changed. So as a woman, I would say definitely be cautious of who you call your friends because sometimes those friends have that envious spirit. Sometimes those friends have the spirit of where they really want you to be jealous of them because they don't want you to be successful. You also have friends who walk around who say they're your friend, but in reality, they're trying to steal who you are because they want to really be you. And therefore, they sabotage it along the way. And then you have friends who, like you mentioned this, and that's why I'm surprised you said this, Jay, because you mentioned this somewhere else where you was like, women have friends who they have, or maybe that was you, Nick, I don't know, where they have like 4 cute girls and then they have the ugly duckling, right? Or they have, who said it?
That was
Yeah, that's what I thought. So I'm surprised because women will purposely have an ugly duckling so they look better next to that person. So how we know Shekinah was not her ugly duckling, who she wanted to make sure that she looked better next to. And that's the energy she gave. I'm saying we don't, but that's the energy she gave. So she wasn't a friend.
You can't feel entitled to something you were too proud to ask for.
I agree with that part. That's why I say her pride that strong, independent Black woman held her back in that case because she should have been like, yo, I need some assistance.
I disagree with that.
Go ahead.
I
Really?
disagree with that. I don't listen. I'm not a strong, independent Black woman, but I'd be loath to have to ask people for shit. Sometimes you do got to figure it out, especially if you feel like you're accountable and you're the one that put yourself in that position. I think there's different cases where I'm not going to push back on her for not asking. Right, because I'm just saying I don't want to call that a strong, independent Black woman trope because there are men and other people who would feel the same way. Pride is just pride. Like, I'm not going to ask people for shit. I don't put myself in this position. I'm going to deal with it. And apparently she did deal with it to a certain extent, well enough to kind of come back on the other side and be able to have this real conversation. So I'm just pushing back on this idea that it had to be like the strong, independent Black. I do agree. Go ahead, Jake. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'm saying B. Simone is not the culprit here. Her pride is the culprit. If she had expressed her need to her friend when she saw money was going out, her friend was in a position to give money out, and her friend was like, nah, I can't do it, girl. I just gave $5,000 to somebody else. That's a different thing, right? But we got to stop holding people accountable for unexpressed expectations. You know what I mean? It's just not fair. We all have a best case scenario or how we want things to go. We all have these happy endings in our head, our druthers of how we wish people would behave. But if you don't express that to them, even if they're in a capacity to help you, if you haven't expressed the need, you can't fault them for not being mind readers or for not just sewing into your situation just so you could turn around later on and go, I didn't ask you to, because people will do that. You know what I mean? And you'll turn around and give your last trying to be a friend, only to find out that person really isn't your friend. They just thought they were they actually were a parasite or whatever. And then all this giving that you did, all this selflessness, they turn around and go, I didn't ask you to do that. You did it for you. So I completely understand waiting for somebody to tell me that they need my help sometimes before I help. So then I know my help is appreciated. I know I can move in the space I need to move in. Because sometimes I feel like I step forward to help people and I'm in the way. I'm out of pocket. They already had a plan to do it this way. Or, you help them and they do something else with the money. So, I hear it. Go ahead.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
Okay, so I understand what you're saying because I think open communication is key to all friendships, relationships in general. And I think that people shouldn't make assumptions, right? Because the assumptions or carry these silent burdens and so forth, it doesn't help foster positive bonds. But what I think you're missing is the fact that she said she watched her. Like she was doing it on purpose, give it to people who didn't ask. It was just like,
I
oh,
don't
here
think
you
it was
go.
that specific, SNM. I'm sorry.
Huh?
I didn't take it that specifically. I think when she said she watched people, it's kind of like if she was on social, because B. Simone is a public person. If she saw her on social doing stuff, she might have been like, oh, I watched her do this. I don't think she was there specifically at the time. But I want to kind of take it off of B. Simone a little bit because, I mean, honestly, I do think there's enough evidence to suggest she's not the best of friend, right? She's not the best friend to have. I don't want to argue it about her. But I do think there's a conversation in regards to expectations and friendship, which is the part that I was trying to kind of stay on because, like, for example, if you're in a friendship with both y'all, matter of fact, all of us, right? We're all friends. We all kicking it, right? At some point, depending on if you have certain friendships, if one of us become a millionaire tomorrow, would that change any expectation beyond just asking for money, right? Maybe like if we go out together, do we have an expectation or change? Let's say as the rich friend, I want to do things that now that I'm able to do. Can you do them with me? Can we talk about maybe how there's a shift in friendship, I guess, based off of finances? Or, as the last round of this conversation, right? Or because the other part of the conversation that to me would be a deeper conversation, and Jay, this is the part that I think SNM was getting to, and I'll just say this and then we can pivot just real quickly, is that there's inherently, we all talk about challenges in women's relationships, right? The shit goes deep, bro, in ways that I think men just need to really understand. Sometimes the surreptitious nature of friendships, the connivingness, the backstabbing, the jealousy, we know that when we joke about it, but I don't think we really understand the depths. And watching B. Simone to me was someone that exposed some of that in real time. Shorty said, I called B. Simone about an opportunity that I got, that she had, I guess, cultivated on her own. I guess B. Simone couldn't be happy for her. They hung up the phone, hey, I'll call you back. Then she had to call the girl back to tell her the reason why she couldn't be happy for her friend, right? And part of that kind of expressed this person who couldn't just genuinely be happy for a friend and because it wasn't something that she presented. It wasn't something that she could be a part of. There was a lot of ego sometimes. So we don't know these people enough to say that, but I do think there is a conversation to be had about the treachery I think that women face in girls in friendships amongst each other, especially when they throw around the word bestie like everybody's that, when in truth, seldom anybody's that, especially when you look at their immediate friend circles, right? But the question I'm going to ask, because I do think there is some relations to this part of it, is if your friend comes up, you guys are close and everything like that, do you have expectation to kind of go along on that ride with your friend, right? Like if y'all was kicking it, y'all was, rolling together, and all of a sudden your friend is doing their thing and like taking trips and traveling or whatever, right? Do you have some level, or is it wrong to have some level of expectation that maybe you'd be a part of that in some way, shape, or form?
I think it's wrong to expect that just because your friend is going places that they're going to take you. I think because they could take anybody, right? And they probably have other people that they have to take. I think it's great if they take you. I think it's flattering. I think it's probably going to be a better experience for both of y'all if you're along for the ride. But I think it's on them to bring you along for the ride. And I think if they're going places that you can't afford to go, then yeah, they should pay for you if they're inviting you to those places, right? But also if they're going places you can't afford to go and they, for whatever reason, haven't budgeted to take you, I don't think that's flaw on them. I feel like what I owe my friends when I'm successful is to try to find ways for them to be successful, or even try to find places for them in my success, but not just to bring them along because I'm going and hey, I want you to come. I mean, that's great. I can do that, but I don't owe anybody that. I only owe I only owe consideration and love and respect. And everything else I give is a blessing and a boon. So yeah, when I make it, I'm gonna try to put all my friends on. I'm gonna try to find jobs for everybody where they're not being paid by me. We all making money. That's the plan. But just because I blow up, I got lots of people I'm close to, but I'm not taking them with me everywhere I go when I'm a millionaire or whatever. For why? I'd be like MC Hammer. He's the greatest, I think, lesson for that. Like Hammer put everybody on his back, and then they wore him down, and then he couldn't support anybody anymore. So now everybody's back in the same position they were in because they just kept draining Hammer, and he kept trying to support everybody, but one person can't do that.
So it's actually interesting because I was going to bring up MC Hammer as the worst case scenario because those people who he was supporting was not really his friends, right? Because he put the whole neighborhood on his back, right?
Yeah.
And so I think that's the difference. Like people like Luda or LeBron who had their friends come and support them because they made them the chef or they gave them manager positions and so forth. I think that's the more appropriate route. And so as somebody who has friends who actually do make way more than I do, is one of those things where I don't expect them to do anything for me. As a matter of fact, if I get an opportunity to be in the same room, like sometimes they're like, hey, I need you to come to this event and you can meet some people for networking purposes or whatnot, right? And I'm like, oh man, cool. I'm excited. I'm thankful and so forth. And so it's one of those things where I'll get in where I fit in. There's no expectation for me to do so, for them to uplift or pull me or any of that. I'm just thankful when they do and they think like that. I personally, though, because of who I am, my first thing is going to be like, hey, let me see how I can put you on. Let me see how I can extend my circle to bring you into where I'm at because I want you to succeed just like I'm succeeding, especially if you're not succeeding. Now, there becomes a point where you may have to recognize you need to cut somebody off because they're not doing what they need to do to stay within the group. I'll put it like that. When I say group, I mean as far as that exploratory grinding and so forth, right, to get where they need to go. And so, but that's just me personally. As a matter of fact, I had somebody ask me, like, what if you won the lottery? What would you do? And the first thing I was like, I thought about all the people who I wanted to contribute and give money to just for the purpose of uplifting them because I know they have business plans. They're trying to get that off the ground, but they don't have that. So the investments, opportunities that I'm looking at, if I was to ever win the lottery or whatnot, you know? And so, but I think that expectation still needs to be defined, but there's no real expectation for folks to say, oh, where I'm at, you're at. It'll be nice. Thanks. And but that's just me, you know.
I hear y'all. I don't know. I want to say I agree with y'all. Especially as a person, like if you're talking about like, money stuff, like I don't have expectations of other people. Period. It's full stop. But I'd be lying though if I feel like there wouldn't be some expectations in some way, shape, or form. I hear what y'all saying because it sounds like, we don't expect shit from anybody. But I don't know. I don't know. Like for example, let's say like if you had a friend and they were having a big event, right? Even if that person genuinely did invite you because they didn't think you could afford it, you might still have had the expectation of being invited. So what I'm saying is that I get that I feel like there is a scenario where I could see having an expectation of a friend who happens to be rich, and it could be that the transition changes the expectations before you're aware of it. And then it's also like a new journey for both sides necessarily, right? Because I find it hard, like if I'm a person and I think, man, as soon as I get balling out, I'm bringing everybody with me. I get that y'all differentiated between, I'll give you opportunities, and I get that you have to have some separation because you can't give everybody an opportunity. You brought up the hammer example. But that's also different than literally bringing people with you. Like for example, Woody. He's one of the first people I know that the minute it's gone and popping, I'm literally bringing him with me. I got stuff that we can do together. Period. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I know I literally actively reach out, try to connect with and build just on the business shit. But I'm saying, once I literally get into the position, you have to fuck up to get outside of my grace to a certain extent. Like, that's my mindset. Because number one, I have a limited number of people I can trust. So again, I'm saying as a person who moves that way, would I have no expectation for other people? I don't expect a 1-to-1 ratio. But again, if I call you my friend and I know this is how I show up as a friend, where's the reciprocity, right? Because I'm going to just show up as my everything and give you everything and not have any expectation whatsoever. So I hear y'all, but I just think as human beings, inevitably, we do tend to have expectations for relationships that we define, for those that, especially those that we care about. And I notice because people be having expectations that are outsized, unfounded, and they have no basis whatsoever, but they still have them. So it's like, you know what I mean? So I hear y'all, but I just think that it's fair for people to have. Now, how you respond to those expectations or the unspoken expectations, how you deal with it. And that's why I kind of bring it full circle before we get up out of here and with some final thoughts, is the fact that these two young ladies were having the conversation is the kudos that I would give to them, and probably more so on Shekinah's side, I guess, because she was being open about what she had went through. I think it's easier to do, obviously, after you've gone through it. But these conversations aren't probably happening enough. And when they do happen, it gives the person an opportunity to really know whether or not they were really friends in the first place. And I think because like, it may not be money. It just shows up in other ways. I expected that my friend would support me this way, then they don't. I expected they would show up for me in this way, then they don't. Let alone if they actually take actions to purposefully not do so, right? So I think when it comes to people you call your friends, even the rich ones, right? Even the poor ones, you're going to have some level of expectations. And I think it's going to be hard sometimes to navigate between whether or not those expectations are rooted in funds or finance or whatever. But I hear y'all. With that being said, any final thoughts, man? I feel like any final thoughts before we get up out of here?
Yeah, I enjoyed the night, of course. Miss Tia and Delvin, of course. But I enjoyed tonight's conversation because I really feel like it was a reality check. I feel like the streets needed it. We peeled back the layers on a lot of things: power, partnership, pride, protection. Y'all know I like the alliterations. And what kept showing up was this, in my mind. Everybody wants a connection, but nobody wants the cost. I mean, from Katie paying for peace to Kiki, you know what I'm saying, paying no mind to your opinions. From Shekinah or whatever, feeling left behind, to folks playing games with pregnancy and trapping people. Everybody, we're living in a time where currency is emotional, it's transactional, it's not just financial. And we got to stop measuring people by what they earn and stop asking how you show up. More important than how much money you make is what do you do with your money? Emotional intelligence is the new wealth, okay? And empathy is the new clout. And boundaries are love, okay? They're not bad. Boundaries are love with structure. It's not shade. I can tell you no and still be cool with you. So before you call somebody disloyal, ask yourself, are they protecting themselves or avoiding accountability? Because it could be both. Before you call somebody soft, ask, are they detached? Or are they just done performing the struggle for your approval? We're redefining love, leadership, loyalty in real time. That's what happened tonight. And if it makes you uncomfortable, then good. Because growth is supposed to stretch you. So protect your peace, not by logging off. Like, subscribe, follow, all of that. But don't make isolation for elevation. Like, nobody's an island. And hold your friends close. Because once you learn the difference between friends and enemies, you also learn the difference between support and self-sacrifice. Above all, final thoughts, my final stroke. Whether you're leading, loving, or leaving, do it with clarity, communication, and not confusion. Because real doesn't always look how you expect, but it should and will always feel like the truth. That's my word.
Wow, I'm not quite sure how I can follow all of that. So I'm just going to focus on one little piece of the story and say this. I think that one of the things that we don't understand or recognize that we do need to start differentiating our relationships and the level of effort that we put into certain relationships. And that includes identifying accurately what that person is in that relationship: acquaintance, associate, paid prostitute, transactional relationship. We need to start actually differentiating and then standing on that, because I think that sometimes, especially when it comes to a friendship, because that's a story that I can actually resonate with, is that we don't necessarily owe constant support, but there is some expectation for support to exist, regardless of what that form may be. Like, so for example, it doesn't necessarily have to be monetary, but showing up to support somebody by, hey, watch the podcast I'm on. Hey, like, follow, subscribe, or those are all things you could do for free, right? It's like some of the easier things that you can do to show support. And I think that communication, and this is why I got to give kudos, and that's why this is my final thought to the B. Simone conversation, is that true friendship actually isn't transactional. And the fact that their friendship held space for struggle and growth on both sides actually speaks to the maturity of that relationship. And while she may not have presented herself as a friend in the beginning, maybe they're not on a path where she can actually be that friend that Shekinah expected, And I think that's very important, especially as women, that we need to start recognizing that not everybody your friend. Not everybody has that level of maturity or emotional support, or even support period, for you. And being able to identify that will allow you to move accordingly. And I think that's important for us.
I think the struggle for equality or equity is not linear. It goes up, it goes down. There's all these different windy, twisty roads, right? Unintended consequences, like able-bodied men over 35 getting alimony, right? Didn't intend that to happen, but it's a thing because that's how the laws have been set up. And that's how we move towards equality, right? So I just want to say that, like, I know it's not fun, right? But when you go into like a negotiation, you got to give something up. So if you want something, you got to give something up, ladies. Guys get alimony too. Niggas are trapping babies, right? The second thing I want to say real quickly is because I feel like we had 2 weeks of conversations about a particular community. And I just want to simply say, I feel like if you want tolerance, you should also show tolerance, right? People are allowed to defer on opinions. Just because you mention something in particular doesn't mean you're casting aspersions on an entire community. The funny thing about people who had comments on my comment who made it seem like it was only about one thing, well, they failed to realize that the segment that we were talking about was somebody who only made it about one thing, right? If you, like, for example, how crazy would it sound like for me to say that beep group is the problem? Right? We wouldn't even be able to get that video up on YouTube for real, right? But for me to combat that and say that there is not just one group that's a problem, that collectively we're the problem. And for those people who commented to only hear that part, y'all lucky I did as nicely as I did, right? Because it just shows the ignorance and the lack of tolerance for just deferring opinions, let alone orientation. You know what I'm saying? So, and I feel like they felt like they would be probably arguing for the side of tolerance or acceptance, but yet they can't accept the fact that I just think differently than they do. How funny is that? But with that being said, we really appreciate y'all for tapping in on behalf of myself, SNM Jones, Just Jay, T&B, Del V. We'll see y'all hopefully not next week, but the week following. Enjoy the 4th of July. You already said the whole like, subscribe thing. Don't forget the merch, y'all. Yeah. Emotional errors coming at y'all. We'll see y'all, man, in a couple of weeks. Y'all be safe. Peace.
Later.
Love y'all.